There are very few times where I would ever recommend an officer fire through their windshield. Today, though, I think we're actually going to get to see one.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I am your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Williver. Strap in. Today's is a doozy, and it comes to us from Kingman, Arizona.
Today's video is brought to us by Mantis. The Mantis family of products is integral to ASP staff building handgun and carbine skills and are your most economical and fastest path to improvement in your skills too. Whether you choose the X10, the Laser Academy, the Blackbeard, or use them all in concert, they will help your practice be more effective, efficient, and fun. Go check them out, pick up a unit, and thank them for sponsoring today's video. We're watching the badge cam of an Arizona DPS trooper who has tried to pull a guy over for a traffic violation. That guy has decided he wanted to run. Instead, they have played a little bit of bumper cars. That's not been good. And we're about to watch it get way out of hand. Let's listen in.
Just be advised, he did a U-turn and came head on. I had to swerve off to the shoulder to miss him. 0215, contact with them. Send me other units. Where you at? Put your hands up! Put your hands up now! Put your hands up! 0215, 2 at gunpoint. He's running again. We hit. Where? 0215, shots fired. Where are you at? Thompson! Zebra 215, start me units. Thompson and Pell. I'm coming, I'm coming. Ow! Zebra 215, I'm hit. Zebra 215, shot in the back.
After hitting our trooper from behind with at least one round, I think it was shrapnel that he hit him with, our ne'er-do-well, he was hit as well. And so then eventually he wrecked his car, went out into the weeds there, didn't realize that he was being watched by the eye in the sky, where he dropped off a bag with a whole bunch of fentanyl and methamphetamines and guns and all kinds of other fun. But the officers did end up getting a hold of him, and after taking him to the hospital, he is facing a cornuplethora of charges. Our officer was taken to the hospital and then treated and released, which tells me that the injury was probably shrapnel, wasn't terribly bad, and we wish him a full and complete recovery. Hey, listen, no matter what else we say, our Arizona coppers, we see dudes with a pretty darn good Predator drive.
Yep, they're out there to catch bad guys, and that's what I want to see.
You know, Mike, it's another reminder that you never know when a routine traffic stop is going to escalate to a dude with a giggle switch and a death wish in that day, because you can see them here trading paint and you know, playing bumper cars. Then he finally gets the guy pulled over, and I think given all that context, that a felony stop here is 100% the way to go. I have zero problem with him out of the car pointing a gun at this guy.
Yeah, 100%, John. I want to point something out here. Throughout this whole video, this trooper is having to make really split-second decisions. In a couple cases, for example, when he first fired that what sounded like an automatic giggle switch Glock at him, he didn't have any time. He was behind the curve. So a lot of the decisions this guy had to make were beyond split second. He had no time to think. He just had to react in the moment. With that said, look, he ended up where he ended up. They were playing bumper cars, like you said. So unfortunately, they end up in this configuration. This is not ideal. Obviously, we prefer to be, for our officers, our deputies, our troopers, to be behind the suspect vehicle. That gives you all the advantage in the world. So, this is just how they landed. It wasn't like he planned to be face to face with this guy, but here we are, and now he has to react. And this is probably what I would have done as well. So, good on him for at least keeping his head in the fight.
And if you've been watching the channel a while, they are colloquially known as giggle switches, but they're really auto sears, and you can 3D print them or order them on Temu, for goodness sakes, if you don't mind saying hi to an ATF agent in your life. And of course, they're illegal to own, illegal to put on a Glock, in fact, because they turn it into a full auto gun that's then not registered under the National Firearms Act. And we can talk about that all we want. But here, again, a perfectly fine felony stop. Then all of a sudden, the dude is going to get out, and as he backs up, our trooper is going to decide to get back in the car. And you know, Mike, I thought about this one a little bit, and my first inclination was I'd rather get away from the car. But you know, on second thought, getting inside the car, if you can get all the way inside the car and get that door closed, that puts a good bit of protection around you. That car is built to protect you from impacts.
Yeah, look, we can debate this all day long, but this is probably, again, what I'll put it the what I might have done meter. Probably what I would have done as well, because the guy's starting to leave and we want to be in a position to pursue him further. We don't want him getting away. He's obviously a menace and a danger to society. Getting back in the car here, I think, is the most natural thing in the world. And like John said, what do you now have in between you and the purple? First of all, the windshield, right? The windshield isn't really cover, but it does, you know, the bullets, as John likes to say, will do funny things and unpredictable things when they pass through a windshield. So if he does get a bead on you and pull the trigger, there's maybe a 50-50 chance that bullet goes in some odd direction, not into you. But the most important thing here is you have the steering wheel, the airbag, the instrument cluster, the engine block, whatever else is up there, the battery, all that stuff is in between you and a handgun bullet. And it will stop almost all those handgun bullets dead. So look, it's a judgment call getting back in the car. His other option was maybe to go and get behind the car and use the whole car for cover. I think he's thinking in this split moment, in this split second, he's thinking, this guy's going to run. I got to be ready to catch him. So get back in the car makes sense.
Yeah, and if he decides to hit you with the car, you've also got the crumple zones in the vehicle and the airbags in the vehicle. So in retrospect, this is actually a really good idea. I don't know what the policy would be here. I would say either get in it completely so that that door can close and not crush you, or get away from it. Now, that guy starts coming at him with automatic fire, and this guy pulls a Han Solo. He doesn't think about it here. He just starts firing back. And you know, props to him for that. Nah, man, I'm not going out to automatic fire to some idiot with, you know, a Glock clone here. I'm going to get in this fight. And this is probably the only time, Mike, where I am a fan of shooting through the windshield for the officer. We get on folks for doing this pretty regularly, but in this case, I think it was the right choice.
If you're a trainer at an agency watching this, consider doing this. It's something we did with my agency back in California a few years back, is to go to junkyards and get some complete windshields, some whole windshields, put them on a set of hobby horses, is that what they're called? Set them up, put a folding chair behind them, everybody wearing really good eye protection, and practice shooting through a windshield for the first time ever, and hopefully the last time. Hopefully you never have to do it in the field, because shooting through a windshield is not really the most practical thing in the world. However, I just don't see, and of course, John and I discussed this before we hit the record button, neither one of us can see what options he had now that he's in the car. Had he not gotten in the car, that'd be one thing. But he's in the car now. He's being shot at with what sounds like, or appears to be, fully automatic fire from a Glock. He needs to get rounds downrange toward this guy as quickly as possible. I think he was didn't have much of a choice, frankly. And again, this is one of those decisions, like I said at the top, that he's got to make split second, less than a split second. He's behind the power curve. He's got to get that advantage again. The only way to get that advantage over this bad guy again is to put lead in his direction. I can't remember what the backstop was, but I think this is his only option right now, other than sitting there and getting shot.
I really think he doesn't have a whole lot of choice. I want to note here as well, our badge cam shows us something interesting because of the angle of the sun. If you look here on camera, you can see all the little flecks, and that is glass shards that are coming back towards our trooper from the windshield. Now, I don't know if those are incoming rounds giving him that or outgoing rounds. I can tell you I've never taken incoming rounds through a windshield. I've shot outgoing rounds, and you will get this inside the vehicle as well. And if you've never done that, if you've never experienced it, it can be quite disorienting. Now, of course, the only time I've ever done it was with eye protection on as well, because I think it would be foolish to do otherwise in a training environment. But understanding that that's going to come back to you, if you've never experienced it, is highly disorienting. So another reason, Mike, I think having your idea of doing this and even doing it inside of a real vehicle with overlaid windshields makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and if you have the money to do it, do it. If you don't, at least have some mental reps. Like, this is a good mental rep right now. This could happen to me. Listen, I had a good friend of mine I used to work at task force with, who has agreed to come on the podcast as soon as the DA's letter has come down justifying his shooting. But his shooting involved him searching a car lot, and the bad guy had hidden himself inside of a vehicle. And as he went to check that vehicle with his gun out, boom, out comes gunfire right in his direction. And he told me later, what you don't see on the tape is him sitting for 2.5 hours at the hospital while they pluck little tiny bits of automotive glass out of his eyes. So if you do this in training, please, please, please use full, like, seriously, chemistry set, Breaking Bad style eyewear, not just your normal glasses, because that glass can get it everywhere. So do this, but be safe about it.
Now, as the action continues, the cognitive load really goes up here. He empties the magazine, and now he's going to get the car going by switching hands with the gun, and then switch the gun back as he starts driving and reload the gun while he's trying to find the suspect. This is a lot of cognitive load, and he wants to get his gun back in the fight. Totally get that, but whew, doggy, that's a bunch. And I think it leads here, Mike, to a little bit of a challenge that he decides to fire out the side window. I don't love this decision. I understand that he is stuck in a spot where he says, listen, I got to stop this guy, and the tool I have in my hand to do it is the gun. And that tool fixation is really real. If you can, I'm not giving him too hard a time for this, please hear me, but if you can, recognize the car is probably a better choice here, because hitting him is almost a nil chance, and the dangers here are really real of sending rounds while you're driving.
Yeah, I wanted to address something real quick. If you rewind a couple seconds, you'll see where he's trying to turn the wheel, close the door, reload the gun, do all those things. I'm not going to fault him at all for that, because right now, as John said, that cognitive overload is very real. The tool fixation is very real. What we prefer to see, right? This could be your mental rep. This could happen to you out in the field, officers and deputies and troopers, right? Agents, everybody. So take this moment to be, if I find myself in a similar situation, what can I do? I think everything would have gone faster had he just reloaded the gun, right? Holster it, and then get the vehicle, oriented where you want it and the direction. Because this guy is obviously squared away. I'm sure his reloads, even from the seated position, maybe he's never practiced that, are still going to be really fast. It's going to be 2 seconds tops. Then you can holster that gun and reorient yourself. Go, okay, now I got to chase this bad guy with my car. And as John said, once you're behind the wheel of the car, first of all, however possible, keep the bad guy in front of you. Don't let him get next to you or behind you. That's because of what we saw earlier. You don't want it face to face. But the important thing is you've got that car, that 2,000 or 3,000. This looks like maybe a Dodge Dakota or something, or a Charger. Get that car and use it for the purpose it wasn't intended for, which is to ram that guy, pit maneuver him, get him off the road, do whatever. I concur with John 100% on that. But again, I do want to give this trooper every benefit of the doubt. He is in the highest stretch situation you can ever imagine finding yourself in, and he's handling it pretty darn well.
Yeah, no shade on this guy at all. In fact, I mean, he is an absolute stud and handles his business, okay? So we're offering training tips for the next evolution so that we can get an A+ on the next one. Nobody gets an A+, even if you or I were in a gunfight, Mike. I'm sure you would agree with me that I wouldn't claim to be getting an A+. We're just offering training tips for everybody for next time. Now, as he is racing through things, I want to kind of recognize a little pucker factor here, is that you can see in the top right that our trooper has his finger on the trigger. This is one of those things where I just don't want you to streak a bullet through your arm, through your leg. You notice that gun is kind of floating around in space. And so this is why your finger has to either be at work on the trigger and is pressing that trigger to do work because you want to send bullets, or it has to be high and at home on the frame or on the slide. And having it in between here is a recipe for disaster.
Look, unless this guy has been shot at before, or maybe had been in combat, maybe he was a Marine or a soldier, we don't know. This is probably the first time he's been shot at. It's almost certainly the first time he's been shot at with fully automatic fire. So I can almost guarantee you what's going through his head, somewhere maybe in the back of his brain, is, I'm going to get shot at again. I need to be this ready, right, to respond to that, the subsequent gunfire. Look, who knows if he was aware of the fact that his finger was on the trigger, but again, this is a training evolution. For the next time this happens to someone watching this video, you could just drive that point home. The finger needs to be hiding register. You'd hate to see, God forbid, this guy shoot himself through the hand or through the arm, and then he's a casualty. He's no longer combat effective. He can't go chase this bad guy anymore because now he has a potentially a life-threatening injury. Just something to think about. So if this happens to you, you've seen it before, and you could deal with it appropriately.
And listen, speaking of a combat casualty and getting out of the fight, he ends up getting hit. Guy gets behind him somehow. We don't get to see how the traffic interaction went. That's the kind of stuff absolutely can happen. and then ends up putting a round into the trooper from behind. And the trooper decides, hey, I'm hit. I'm going to get out of this fight. So he veers off and lets the guy go and lets the chopper get to him and lets other units get to him. And that's not a bad decision, because recognizing how badly am I hit and am I still in the fight or not can be very difficult, especially in an adrenalized state. Trust your buddies, get yourself into a better position. I don't blame him at all for that, Mike. And then finally here, I just want to say the trooper that takes this doofus into custody, I just think should be commended for his restraint, because I think in years past, this dude would have got to the hospital in much worse condition.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, probably would have. He might have had a few broken ribs, in the times before the badge cams and the aerial cams like this. One criticism I do have, I would have much preferred. I know the other officer, I'm not sure what agency he's with, but it appeared he had a shield, like a handheld shield up or whatever. I'd much rather see him drop that shield and go hands-on than the trooper with the long gun. Look, my old agency, we practiced safely getting that firearm out of the way, getting it behind you and going hands-on if you have to. But I'd really prefer the officer who doesn't have the long gun be the one to go hands-on. But I get it. This is a fellow trooper. I'm sure he wanted to be the one to put the cuffs on, and I understand that 100%. Okay, all the criticisms aside, as we like to say around here, at the end of the day, this guy did a fantastic job. A few little issues here and there, stuff we can work on. Great mental reps for next time. But at the end of the day, this guy absolutely handled his business and covered his ass.